In this Baldur's Gate 3 video, I'm going to be showing you guys 3 early game Paladin builds that are very, very powerful. People keep asking me, where are the builds? How long is it going to take to get the builds out? They know builds are coming. And I wanted to give you guys some early game builds for those of you that are near the beginning of the game. And we will have some late game builds later. These early game builds are going to go to level 6. So there are things you can do at level 6. And then the late game builds will be from 7 to 12. They'll be full level 12 builds, kind of showing how to play the game as you go from 7 to 12. So these are 3 multi-class builds, and I did it this way because, first of all, they're really fun, but second of all, I thought after my Paladin guide, playing a Paladin, a single-class Paladin is pretty straightforward. Just keep leveling up Paladin, doing the things there, choosing spells, etc. But multi-classing is a little more complicated, so I wanted to get into that and how you might do that early game, what it would look like. So the first build I'm going to show you is a Paladin Warlock multi-class build. This is 2 levels of Paladin and then 4 levels in Warlock. Now, it doesn't particularly matter what subclass you choose for Paladin or Warlock here, so you can choose whichever you like. The Fiend is kind of nice for the extra added health on top of your health pool when you kill enemies, since you will be in melee range a lot. But you could go with whatever you want. So the general idea here is to take 2 levels of Paladin first in order to bring along our fighting style, which is going to be great weapon fighting since we're going to be using a 2-handed weapon. We're going to bring along our Divine Smites, of course, which deal incredible damage. We're going to bring along our armor proficiencies, and we're going to bring along our spell slots as well. So then we're going to move along to Warlock, and what we're going to gain here is Eldritch Blast, which allows us to use our charisma to make ranged attacks, which is great because Paladins have basically no good ranged attacks unless they're playing a Dexterity Paladin, which most play Strength. So that's going to be really nice for us. And also at level 2, we're going to be able to take Agonizing Blast with our first Eldritch Invocation, which is going to allow us to add our charisma modifier to our Eldritch Blast, which is great. And with our second Eldritch Invocation, we're going to pick up Devil's Sight. This is going to give us superior dark vision, but it's also going to allow us to see inside darkness. And I don't mean dark places in the game. I mean the actual darkness spell, to be able to fight inside it while other enemies cannot, which is going to give us a few things. Also at level 2, we're going to gain access to a second Pact Magic spell slot, so we'll be able to cast 2 Pact Magic spells before each short rest. And at level 3, these 2 Pact Magic spell slots will upgrade to level 2 versions, which is great for Divine Smite since these will deal more damage, and we'll also gain a Pact Boon, and we're going to choose Pact of the Blade here. And this is going to allow us to use Charisma for our attack rolls and damage, which is huge. And because we use Charisma from this point onward to make our attacks with this weapon, we don't really need Strength or Dexterity necessarily. We're going to be wearing heavy armor. We have that proficiency from being a Paladin, so we're not going to gain extra armor from Dexterity. So we don't really need Dexterity either. You could probably use Dexterity and medium armor if you want in order to have some points in Dexterity, but you're really going to focus on concentrating on Constitution and Charisma so that your spells hit as hard as they can, you hit as hard as you can with your weapon, and Constitution will help give you a huge health pool and will also help you on concentration checks. So if you have a lot of points in Dexterity or Strength, I suggest respecking at this point and then putting as much as you can into Charisma and Constitution. And then at level 4 of Warlock, we're going to gain a feat, and with that feat, we're going to select Great Weapon Master. And what this feat's going to allow us to do is it's going to allow us to, whenever we make a critical hit or kill a target with a melee weapon, we can make another melee attack as a bonus action. So we're going to be able to use our regular attack action to attack, and we're also going to be able to use our bonus action to attack as well. On top of that, we have a toggleable feature that allows us to add 10 damage to our damage roll for a -5 attack roll penalty. That means we might be more likely to miss, but if we do connect, we're going to hit way harder. And since this is toggleable, you can turn it on and off. But one of the great things is if you're fighting in darkness, then you have advantage on your attack rolls with Devil's Sight. So we don't necessarily get penalized that much with that attack roll penalty compared to a lot of other characters. So the kind of strategy here is to drop darkness in an area around a bunch of enemies, go into that darkness and, get in and attack enemies and protect yourself, because ranged enemies cannot shoot into the darkness and you can't shoot ranged attacks out of the darkness, but you can melee in the darkness and you can do so with advantage if you have Devil's Sight. And what's really great about having Paladin here is you can use Divine Smite in this darkness, and you can also use it on the bonus attack that you gain if you kill an enemy with your weapon, which is great. Just keep in mind that if you kill the first enemy with your weapon and Divine Smite together, you won't gain that bonus action. So try and kill the first enemy, make it a weaker target, kill that enemy, and then use your attack and Divine Smite on the second target if possible. And I really like this build. The pros of this build are that you have more flexibility as a Paladin, right? You have Eldritch Blast, which you'll be able to use. You don't have to put points into Strength and Dexterity from this point onward necessarily. You can just pump Constitution and Charisma, making you really tanky and have really high damage because your attacks are going to be off that. And you also can fight in darkness and give yourself high attack rolls and damage in there. That's going to make enemies have a tough time. They won't know how to handle it very well. So those are kind of the strengths of this playstyle. And what's really great about this too is at your next level, level 7, if you take level 5 of Warlock, your spell slots are going to get upgraded to level 3, which is great. but also you're going to gain extra attack with your packed weapon. So that extra attack you're missing from 5 levels of Paladin, you'll gain in 1 more level, making this build even stronger. So next, let's take a look at 5 levels of Paladin and 1 level of Sorcerer. And what I really like about this setup is you're going to have more spell slots than you had in the previous build. You're going to gain them on long rest instead of short rest, but you will have more spell slots, which means more Divine Smites in a given combat if you need them. Additionally, you will gain access to some cantrips with this build, which is great. That gives you a ranged option as a Paladin, and these aren't going to consume spells. So just like the Warlock multi-class where you could use Eldritch Blast if you need it, this is going to give you a ranged option as well. Paladins sorely need range, and because they're mostly strength charisma, they don't really use like a bow or crossbow very effectively. So this is really great for having like a ranged option on a Paladin. And because we've taken the 5 levels of Paladin here before 1 level of Sorcerer, you're going to gain a few things that are missing on the previous build. You're going to gain 2 other Channel Oath features for your subclass, whichever subclass you choose, and you can choose whichever one you want. And you're also going to gain the spells you would gain for your Oath spells at level 3 and level 5 that were missing from the previous build because we never made it to that level either. So you'll also gain those, and those are dependent obviously on the subclass that you choose. You can watch our Paladin guide if you don't know, or you can check on the wiki what those are. But depending on what subclass you are, you're going to gain access to more spells too from those, which is great. But also on top of this, you'll be able to pick up some offensive AoE type spells like Thunderwave or Burning Hands that come in handy when a Paladin is surrounded and there are a lot of enemies, because Paladins, even though they have extra attack, are only going to be able to attack twice here, which is, not a lot if you're surrounded by 6 guys. But if you use something like Thunderwave or Burning Hands, you can hit a lot of them, kill a lot of them, etc. And that's a better use of your turn than just like hitting or killing 2 guys. So I really like having the flexibility of having some AoE shorter range type spells and the ability to attack twice and the ability to have a ranged cantrip if you need it. It's a lot of flexibility, and it gives you a lot of tools for whatever you need in the situation. And then on your 7th level, if you take Sorcerer again, you're going to gain access to sorcery points, which is going to allow you to manipulate your spells by giving you meta magic, or you can sacrifice those sorcery points for another spell slot that you can use to cast spells, or you can use it to, Divine Smite if you need it. So there's some more flexibility there as well. And if I could make a recommendation about subclass here, I like Storm Sorcery for Sorcerer here, and that's because at level 1, whenever you cast a level 1 spell or higher, you can fly as a bonus action until the end of your turn without receiving an attack of opportunity. Paladins absolutely need this mobility, so this is really great that they can move up or down a good distance, and then they can use their movement points. And this tempts them to cast spells. Keep in mind that Divine Smite does not count as a spell in this case, and using Divine Smite is not going to let you to fly. If you could do that, that would be amazing, but you actually have to cast a level 1 spell or higher in order to be able to do this. So the final build here is 2 levels of Paladin and 4 levels of Bard, and just like with the 2 levels of Paladin Warlock build, here you're going to be bringing your armor proficiency and weapon proficiency with you. You're going to be bringing Divine Smite, you're going to be bringing your spell slots, and you're going to be bringing your fighting style, which in this case is going to be defense. And what you gain by selecting Bard here is you gain access to Bardic Inspiration, which you can use this, a number of times before long rest to help your companions either outside of combat or inside of combat. Eventually, we'll be able to use this on ourselves as well. And you're also going to gain access to a lot of support type spells, but also a couple offensive ones, giving the Paladin like Healing Word, which is great. They can use their bonus action to heal teammates, which is fantastic, or they can heal themselves while they're in combat, or they can use something like Cloud of Daggers. They can also get Thunderwave with Bard, which is great. So all these things are good too. And on top of that, you're going to have more spell slots than you have with either the other 2 combinations, and you're going to have level 3 spell slots as well, which you can use for even stronger Divine Smites, or to cast level 2 spells at a higher level, since you won't actually have access to level 3 Bard spells at this point, although you will on the very next level. So once you hit level 3 Bard, we're going to choose a subclass, and we're going to choose College of Swords. And what this is going to do is it's going to give us a couple of extra actions that we can use in combat by using our Bardic Inspiration die on ourselves. That's going to make us more formidable in combat. And what these Bardic Inspiration die can be used for, the first one is Defensive Flourish, which makes it so if you land your attack, then you increase your armor by 4 until your next turn, which is great. Mobile Flourish allows you to push the target backwards 6 meters and then teleport to them after if you want. So maybe you're next to a ledge, you want to knock a target off, or maybe you just want to push them backward into an effect, or maybe you just want to push them backward away from another friendly target and then teleport onto them to stay on top. That gives you that option. And then you have Slashing Flourish, which allows you to use a Bardic Inspiration die to kind of give you a cleave effect and effectively hit 2 enemies at once. You kind of got to maneuver it there so that it's over both enemies. But this is really great because we're lacking extra attack, but here you can kind of make up for it with your Bardic Inspiration dies because you can hit 2 enemies with 1 attack, which isn't the same as extra attack, but it's still really, really good. And one thing that's really superb about this is that if you hit both enemies, you can actually trigger Divine Smite on both of them. You'd have to use 2 spell slots in order to do this, but that's absolutely devastating. And for your feat at level 4 Bard, I strongly suggest getting something like Warcaster. You could also go Charisma if you'd rather, but Warcaster is really nice. This is going to give you advantage on concentration checks, meaning that like you can cast Cloud of Daggers and keep it up longer without, getting hit and it ending early, or you can use Bless or something like that without it ending early. Paladins and Bards have a lot of concentration type spells, and I feel like Warcaster is a really nice benefit here in order to keep those spells up longer if you want. You could also take ability improvement with Charisma if you want, or Strength, but I really like Warcaster on this build. It's kind of up to you. And another great thing is that at Bard level 5, our Bardic Inspiration die will replenish on short rest as well as long rest, so we'll be able to use them like pretty much between every combat. And lastly, if you take Bard up to level 6 after this point, so at level 8 on your character, you'll actually gain extra attack from Bard. So you can gain that extra attack that you were missing from 5 levels of Paladin in a couple more levels, really, really rounding out this build. So that wraps up our video on 3 Paladin builds you can play early on in the game. I hope it helped you guys, give you some ideas on how you can play. These are obviously not the only multi-classes you can do at this level, but they're ones that I found particularly fun and wanted to share, and I hope they give you ideas of your own. Stay tuned for more Baldur's Gate 3 content. If you guys have questions or you need help about things, please let me know in the comments below.